Okay. All right. Okay. Are we ready? Okay, we'll call to order the March 15th Measure J Commission meeting. Ariana, can you take roll call, please? Oh, and one reminder, everybody, again, the microphones, you need to get them close, and remember to turn them off after you're done.
Commissioner Bixson? Here. Commissioner Craig?
Here.
Commissioner Gazan?
Here.
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Vice Chair Hammond?
Here. Here.
Chair Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Marshall? Commissioner Vogel is out. And Commissioner Williams? We have a quorum.
Commissioner Hammond, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Acceptance of the agenda. The Measure J Commission will discuss the order of the agenda and amend the order, add items, etc., as we see fit. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
I had one question.
Oh, sure.
One question. Looking through my notes, which sometimes are more dependable than others, I thought, other times, I thought we were going to have a discussion on trail trash receptacles this time, and is that part of the finance director's report?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Keel.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Only to the extent that it's gone for next year.
I saw that.
Anything else on the agenda? Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda? Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, approval of the minutes. Any discussion around the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, can I ask one question? Ariana, what entails an action? When we see it says no action taken.
When there's a vote.
Okay, so an actual vote. Okay, thank you. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes? I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
Do I hear, second?
Second.
Sorry. All right. Public comments? Okay, all right. Well, this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Although the Measure J Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. And then 3 minutes are assigned each speaker.
So,
Sure.
I was going to save this for commissioner comments, but I could take care of it in the same amount of time now as I could at the end, and then it's not on the screens. Would that work for you?
Sure.
Okay.
It works for me. It works for everyone.
And is this our time or the public's time too?
Well, this is, well, no, there's no public comments.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, there can be later after the session, but for right now up front, no one has signed up to do public comments. And so we're in my comments, so I'm sharing.
Okay. So one of the things that we've been talking about is, for a long time actually, is something that might look like a Measure J medallion. And what I noticed and this is in conjunction with all the money that Measure J has spent on the downtown project. And I had the fortunate opportunity to venture to our new downtown, to the Reserve. And right outside of the Reserve, in that beautiful patio area, is a utility cover that looks just like this. And I am suggesting that we might, as a commission, as a city, think about doing something that may be a little bit more representative, okay, there it is, of what Palm Springs is all about. And these are some covers, utility covers from other communities. This is Iceland. The other two, this is Omaha, Nebraska, that are very representative of Eugene, Oregon, here. Italy, this is Italian, but very representative of what's going on in a particular area. And I would propose, just as an idea, that we, the commission, the city, think about how we could dress up our sidewalks downtown to look more like art and some of the things that we are interested in. These are various sizes. We have various openings. These are very reflective of the different communities that have created them. And I would just encourage us to think outside the box and put art under our feet.
Tell me what you were again, the reserve, I'm not sure what
Starbucks downtown.
it is. Call it the reserve, okay.
Okay, Starbucks Reserve. It's actually got reserve on
Okay.
the top of it, yeah. So right in the center of town this is what our sidewalk looks like. So
Who owns this utility cover? Who owns this utility cover, and what does SD stand for?
sewer.
Drain, I would
Storm
think.
drain.
Storm drain.
Storm drain, something. Thank you.
So I just put some together for you, just to take a look at what other cities are doing, and
Well, okay, so are you suggesting that whatever design that's come up with for the storm drains around the city, we would also use as the Measure J medallion?
that this
This
could
would be the Measure J
J medallion
Would be that?
that isn't necessarily at eye level, but may be underfoot. And it could be at eye level as well.
Yeah, it could be both.
Yeah, yeah. But there are different sizes of storm drains. They're all, this is all, is it cast, poured? It's a piece that once you pour, it's very heavy, as you all know, but it's like a piece of art. And this could be, we don't have to do one that's identical, although it would be less expensive. But we could do this sort of thing that have bighorn sheep, that have our mountain skyline, that have the tram going up the mountains, that have the windmills. There are a lot of different things that represent Palm Springs and could become part of our utility drain system.
Are you suggesting this should be paid with Measure J money, though? Is that what you're?
I'm suggesting that it's an idea for a Measure J medallion. So it would be a city project. I mean, we've talked about a Measure J medallion for years.
But I can see it outside of the reserve, but in other places in town that have nothing to do with Measure J, why would you put?
Well, downtown. I
Just
mean,
downtown.
just if you're just looking at downtown, there are a number of these
There's one in my
utility
street, too, but you wouldn't put it
covers.
in my street.
Probably not. But maybe out in front of City Hall, or maybe at the convention center, or maybe at the tram, and I probably wouldn't put a tram utility cover at the tram. I'd probably put the windmills or bighorn sheep, something that is reflective of Palm Springs. Tom?
If I might, there are several opportunities for this type of
Art,
labeling,
labeling, okay.
branding, how's that? The city, the two utilities that the city has that this would work with are sewer and storm drain. Both of them use 24-inch manhole lids, cast iron right now.
Utility covers.
Utility lids, thank you, utility covers. The,
It's
there,
gender neutral.
I stand corrected, or sit corrected. There is an opportunity for, we were just discussing on the sanitary sewer side, that there are composite materials that have become available because, for the larger, their larger services, where they have to bring out a crane to lift it up. The composite is just as strong. It's, you don't need to cast the image into it. It can be laser cut into it. So there are plenty of opportunities for this type of branding. We would just need to develop what that brand is, whether or not there's a single, or if you want it neighborhood by neighborhood.
That, yeah.
No, I think
I
Chris's,
wasn't going there.
I think
but-
Chris's point is it's something that would,
Just pulling the pin.
There's a finance person in the room.
Yes.
See his heart go?
Well, and this is water, and it's probably 12 inches across or less, and,
And those are from the water district. The city doesn't mandate what
Right.
goes on those.
Right.
Also, Edison does their own for the electric.
this is Parks and Rec.
so what we control as a city would only be sewer and storm drain covers.
That's correct.
And about how many hundreds or thousands of those are there in the city? Have any idea?
Oh, I'm only talking downtown.
But I know, just
That's-
citywide.
I will just say there are many.
Because this could be something that neighborhoods might want to adopt out of their own budgets and do something in their own neighborhood, to have the storm drain, because they pay for lake signs.
There are many more sanitary sewer than storm drain. We have a limited number of actual storm drain systems, as we will get to later in the agenda. But sanitary sewer is pretty much ubiquitous. It's everywhere in the city. That would be a much more visible, that's much more prevalent. Storm drains, that might be a storm drain, the SD that you pictured earlier. And again, that would be simple, that would be on us.
Oh, please.
I'm only used to seeing the cast iron on everything, and you're saying about a new materials. What are they?
It's a composition material. It's reinforced with steel mesh, and it's much lighter than the cast iron. They're great for larger applications where you have a very, very deep manhole and you need a larger access point rather than the standard 24-inch. They're also traffic rated. The problem with the larger manholes is they get beat up and broken up by heavy vehicle traffic. These composition ones seem to last longer.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they heavy though?
They are heavy, not as heavy as cast iron.
So probably from a workers' comp perspective, they would be easier for people that.
Well, from a risk management point of view, when they break, do they shatter or do they
Don't.
just,
They
they
crack.
wear?
They crack,
They
they wear,
crack.
but again, they're reinforced, so it isn't a catastrophic failure.
So, thank you.
Okay, so the communications group is working on the medallion, right? Okay, and so is this something that you have discussed or thought about as a group, or?
Well, yes, we had a meeting, John and David and I met, and do you want the whole report now?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
We're right, we're doing comments,
Okay.
why not?
So we did discuss plaques or medallions, but first, we tested the City of Palm Springs website, and we have some suggestions to make so that you don't have to click on exactly the right spot to reach Measure J, and just make it more accessible. We also discussed having a place on the website for suggestions, people to leave suggestions for Measure J, and we would have to tell them how long it would take to get a response if they needed a response. And Ariana, does the city have someone who monitors sites to make sure that there's no, bad language or whatever else would be objectionable.
With the submitting any,
Right,
I can check.
okay. So that was the first item, was making, improving the website, making Measure J more accessible. Then David took a page from the library and suggested doing an annual mailing to each household to recap the accomplishments of Measure J. And it could be actually every year or every other year. And this would get the attention of people who don't use computers. And we would need a cost estimate, but we thought there was something in the neighborhood of 25,000 households. Is that the number we guessed? Okay, that's our guess. Okay. And then we thought we could, on an annual basis, give a presentation to 1PS with the updates about Measure J and our accomplishments. And then the last item was the plaques or the medallions to install at Measure J sites with wording such as partially funded by Measure J. And David and I went out after the meeting and looked at the stars that are all over on the sidewalks. And we just looked at the circle with the actual, well, palm tree in the middle, and that measures 6 1/4 inches. And we thought that would be a nice size or a starting point for a circular medallion that could go on various buildings, on the sidewalk. And there are restrictions which we discussed about putting plaques on buildings that are historic preservation sites,
Like the Wellwood.
like the Wellwood where we met.
Probably wouldn't want another flag.
So that was,
Yeah, and that building already does acknowledge Measure J inside, but of course, it's not a medallion.
yeah.
We kicked around a couple of ideas, and I'm just adding some thoughts here. Whether we should have individual plaques for individual buildings, or whether we should have one standard plaque that just says partially funded by Measure J, and probably because of cost, it would have to be the same wherever it was. I don't know how much verbiage we could get on there, but probably not very much if it's a small 6 1/2 inch medallion.
Do you think that a medallion that you would, well, it hasn't been designed or anything yet, could be designed with an idea of what Commissioner Hammond has come up to kind of expand its use? That we
Well,
could,
Yeah.
well, you know, the size, I mean, these things, I guess, are 24 inches, so, you know, that's big, but just like the Walk of the Stars, you know, you got a big thing, but you got this main thing in the middle, so whatever we came up with, a medallion could still be enlarged a little bit and still be in the middle, and the outside can just be you know, a graphic design rather than wording or whatever, and I think they could probably be incorporated, yeah.
And I like the idea of using some of the sites that represent Palm Springs. Roof lines, the windmills, all those things. Very good idea.
There's a cost estimate that's pretty high on these things. These plaques are, I mean, I bought some stuff off the internet, and they were like $400 to $600. I think 400 was a 8 by 12 or something. 600 was a little bit bigger. But, you know, that's talking about a lot of money here. So that's why we went back to sort of the small size, because they don't have a price on those, but they must be less expensive, I would think.
well, it would definitely be less expensive if we just had one template to work from and one design and did that across the board. And there's an advantage to that, consistency in branding, is every time someone sees it, they're not even gonna have to read it anymore. They're gonna say, oh, Measure J, oh, Measure J. So I think there's a real positive, as well as saving money, in doing it that way. I mean, that's just one view, but I think Branding 101 would kind of support that.
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess there was some branding done of Measure J when it came out, and there is on the website, but I don't really know if that need, you know, and there are the signs, and they don't really have I guess they don't have a design, I don't really know, but, so I think we would have to just sort of come up with some ideas and then, go from there, but I don't know that anybody on our committee is a graphic artist, so I'm not sure how you wish us to proceed.
Mr. Kill, how would we proceed to go to an expense on designing a medallion?
You know, I don't have any experience with that. Tom, do you have any thoughts how we would do that?
Once the prototype was developed, it's fairly simple to just have it as the standard that's given to our manufacturer. There would be a cost differential, and we would have to stock them for when they break.
But do we have a resource for designing a prototype? Or would we need to hire someone to do that?
I don't do the artwork. I do the manufacturer. So once the artwork was developed, we can give that to in a CAD file to the casting plants or for the composite ones for the fabricators, and then they can cast it in or laser cut it. But there would be an additional setup expense. That's something we can research.
Commissioner Hammond?
The One Palm Springs has been working for months now on developing branding logos for the 2019 NUSA conference that Palm Springs will be hosting, surprisingly, in 2019. And there are people on staff at the convention center, at tourism, who have been helping with that logo. So they may be a resource for this as well.
Tom, do you have an estimate of installation cost?
No, I don't. I would have to check with the district to find out. And it also depends on location, whether or not traffic control would be required. Some would be a little more expensive, but it's a very quick in and out procedure.
I want to just ask about the composite. Is that something we didn't even think about? Is that something we might use for this medallion instead of brass or whatever?
That's currently not a city standard. That's something we're pursuing, but this could jumpstart that effort. Or not jumpstart, I'm sorry. It is something we're pursuing, but this could be an additive to that effort.
Commissioner Marshall, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask Jeff, when we did the Measure J sign, how did we pay for that graphic, do you recall? Wasn't that out of our budget?
It probably was, and I'm not sure if it was the Buzz Factory who did that, or we had someone working, was it the Buzz Factory, as you recall? So they had helped create several pieces of collateral, both for the campaign and for signage for once projects were in progress or completed. So that could be a resource for us to look at. Tom?
Commissioner Kazan?
Yeah, I just think that we need to be really prudent with this program because it's spending Measure J money, promoting Measure J, and we've got a long list of things that are unfunded, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen the laundry list of a lot of wants. So I think as far as the design, less is more. I agree with, I think the subcommittee that it's probably best to have one design. Maybe one way that we can look at getting free design out of this is setting parameters as far as what we want the size to be, maybe give examples of like the City of Palm Springs circle, and put it out to a competition and let designers out in the public submit ideas. And it costs us nothing except to our time to evaluate, but give them some strict parameters as far as what we're looking for, what the city has already in place as far as branding, And then moving forward, I think we just want to be very cost conscious of how we're using this and the versatility of it. I like the idea, 6 inches might be a little small, maybe if it even increased to 12, that design can be universal. That design can be stamped onto new covers going forward. And not that we necessarily commission new covers, but obviously new covers were put into place with the new downtown. There was an expense to that. It would have been nice at the time if we were on top of it, but they could have been more decorative because the new plaza downtown is beautiful. And then as well as having a stock of whatever would go either in the side of a building that we know, okay, this material will go into a facade of a building, whether it's stucco or brick, or it will be something that can easily affix to a wood siding, fence type siding. Again, versatility and keeping it really simple. I would hate to be criticized on this from the general public as far as, how much are we spending on something when something else is not getting done on the list.
Commissioner Hammond.
I agree that expense on a public project needs to be considered, but something that we would expect to be around for decades, 50 or more years, I think we want to be very conscious of having something that's striking, unique, and will wear with time. So I would just say, yes, I think money is important, but I think the visual interest is also important, that this could potentially become a piece of art for the city.
Commissioner Marshall, you want to say something?
I agree that, we have to be cognizant of the expense, but I also think it's important when you have funds that in a way are invested in making sure we have future funds. Because this right now is a limited thing, and I think 20 years from now, people will need to be reminded over that 20 years why this is here if it comes up. So I think that's an investment in the future, which also needs to be considered. And then on your comment about, it's too bad we didn't, you're right, it'd been nice if we'd had the new ones, but I'm sure they replaced the old ones throughout the city, so instead of buying a new one for there, take the downtown and replace it there.
Yeah, and maybe for the design competition aspect of it, maybe we target certain people. We know people in the community. There are, the Gary Wexlers out there that do great work, and we target these people and say, hey, this is your opportunity to have a logo, something visible throughout the city that they would do possibly for no charge and do the design. And again, setting very strict standard. This is the size of the medallion. This is what the city has done in the past. This is what the city currently has as branding, and kind of dovetail from there.
Commissioner Craig?
A few things. Is it possible for us to also see a sample of this composite material that you're talking about?
I can try to get a sample. Yes.
Okay. I'm asking because I notice anytime I've ever been involved in anything with branding, the initial costs, the setup costs, are the most expensive part. Right. Once the die is cast, then everything else is different on the pricing of that. I just think that the idea of having this type of branding like this, I think it does mean something in this town. I really do. I think when people look at a building and they see this was funded, this was taken care of, and that. When I walked out of the doctor's 2 days ago at the corner of Stevens, and I see the sign across the street, and I see Measure J, it's just nice seeing those things. So I think there's a good purpose here.
Thomas?
One of the benefits to having an established design or standard is that once it's identified, we can incorporate it into the specifications for any Measure J project that comes up. So when they are doing replacements, we just list what they will replace as, whether or not the contractor has to go out and get it or whether it's owner supplied. we can include it in the specs for the project.
Sure.
One of the things we talked about was that there's so many different kinds of Measure J projects, and what made me think of it was your comment, the sign up on the north side is for the crosswalks. Where would you put a medallion on a crosswalk? Maybe on the sign, where you push the button there? I mean, we'd have to think about where we would put this. And obviously, some things you can't do it on street paving, I wouldn't think, and that's where a lot of funds go. So there would only be certain projects that would be appropriate for. But that's
Michael, real quick. That kind of goes to my point of, making sure that the medallion is a material that can be used in a lot of different applications. A good type of cast, some type of metal material could be cast into the concrete. It could actually sit at the crosswalk so that when you're walking on that sidewalk, you see it. And that's, to me, wow, that's really nice. And it's part of it. And again, it's being prudent from a budget standpoint. We're not building something to erect a monument at that crosswalk, which I know you're not implying, or any of us are, but it's pretty simple to just simply place a medallion into the concrete work. And somehow in my neighborhood, someone stamped Sunmore Neighborhood Organization years ago in a sidewalk near my home, and I noticed it the other day when I was cycling, and I'm like, wow, that's lovely. It's something that doesn't blare out at you, but someone did that.
Yeah. Tom, you wanted to say something?
Just to keep in mind that we do have 3 projects, pedestrian safety projects that are in the works. North Palm Canyon, North Indian Canyon, which includes the 2-way conversion, and South Palm Canyon to East Palm Canyon at that curve, where we're putting in pedestrian improvements, pedestrian bulb outs. It might be an opportunity for this branding that you're looking at. If there are sewer storm drain facilities that are in the sidewalks that need to be relocated or raised or moved, that would be an opportunity to look at some of these designs.
Yeah, sounds good. Commissioner Hammond, you want to?
Yeah. When Maryland was downtown a number of years ago, there was a lot of conversation about all the photographs that were taken with Maryland and sent out all over the place. And while, utility covers may not seem quite as alluring and sexy as Marilyn Monroe, trust me, there are a lot of people taking pictures of utility covers and sending them out. And I know you're going, are you crazy? Well, okay, I am a little crazy, but it does happen. That there are books, there are puzzles. Now that I've talked about this, you'll see them. And so then here we would again have I think the medallion concept is something that we need to think about as, again, sending our brand out all over the world and hopefully creating a medallion that would create that kind of attraction.
Okay, so I think what we're asking is for Tom to get a budget, and so in order to do that, we have to kind of help him with the parameters of exactly what we're doing. Are we all in agreement or okay with it being a single template that we can use on everything, everywhere? Keeps the cost down, allows us to be a little more creative with the design, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm a little confused though, but I think we're talking 2 different things. One is the medallion, and one is a manhole cover. Utility cover or whatever. And they're not one and the same. And I think you're asking Tom to do the utility cover estimate. I don't think he would be involved in trying to figure out what a medallion is going to be, because I think they're going to be different.
True.
The design would be the same.
Okay, design is what I'm
But,
talking about, would be the same.
But that's not what he said he's talking about the making of them, not the design of them.
Right, but he needs to understand that he only has to worry about one design. That helps him in figuring out the budget. So, yes, I understand what you're saying, but yeah.
Not one for each name.
Okay. Commissioner Williams?
The last thing, hopefully, we thought that it should somehow indicate that the project was paid for with Measure J funds. Not just Measure J, because that doesn't mean anything to somebody who doesn't know what Measure J is. But if it says paid through Measure J fund of funding or something like, I don't know what the wording is, because 20 years from now, people say, what was Measure J? And maybe they'll Google it and find out.
Oh, Commissioner Bixson? No? Going once, twice? All right, we're good. I only have one other comment to make. The Palm Springs One picnic. It's come to my attention that we don't have a canopy for that picnic. Does any of the commissioners that offered to help set up or close down have a canopy? Some sort of coverage, some sort of pop-up? My concern is I've done this with our neighborhood, and it was 105 degrees, and without a canopy, it's unbearable. And so if we can't get a canopy somehow,
Well, the 10 by 10 canopies at Sam's Club are $199. Just so you'll know. We have one for the police department, but it says ask the chief, and that's being used.
yeah, they probably would frown on us stealing that. Commissioner Bixson?
I think they're available for rent, those canopies.
Oops. Otherwise, I have a big, patio umbrella, but I don't know, it's quite heavy.
I might be able to get one. I think I may have one stuffed in the garage somewhere.
Okay.
If it still works, you want me to find out and let
Yeah,
you know?
could you? Yeah, would you?
I'll have to put it up and see if it still works. I don't think I threw it away, I'm not sure.
Yeah, if you could do
Don't
that,
give me a throw it away.
that'd be great, because I think that's really important. I've done these, and it'll be miserable for us if we
I've
don't
done
have
the
it.
last 3 years, and yes, you have to have it, Jen.
Yeah, okay, all right. So we will Ariana, let you know as soon as possible whether we can get a canopy or not, because if we can't get a canopy, then I think we need to bow out. Okay, all right. Mr. Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My report is brief. There's just a couple of minor changes. As you will note, the buzz budget for future years has been removed, as well as the trash service item. And by removal of those items, that adds money to the bottom line for net new funds available for budgeting. With that, I'll entertain any questions from the commissioners.
Do we have a decision on whether we're going to go, the city's going to go with the 2-year versus a 1-year
Oh,
budget?
Thank you.
Yeah.
They did decide to hold off a year on going with the 2-year budgets. Thank you for mentioning that.
Any other questions? No? Okay, Measure J update report? Mr. Garcia.
I'm going to try to do it just as fast. We have, well, we pass those. It's one single handout.
Oh,
It's just
That's different.
it's one, all one?
all one, correct.
This is one?
That is one.
Oh, okay.
We had been requested to provide information on the park restrooms renovation, see if they were ADA compliant. And this is one report. It's of all the different parks. Each one is a park. So if you want to review and look, so those are all of the deficiencies that are identified in the parks.
Yes. He needs these back.
No, actually, I printed out, they're large, and I didn't want to waste trees. We can get electronic copies, but I wanted to identify that these are the reports identifying the ADA shortfalls in the parks.
How many parks are we talking about?
The 4 that were requested were Ruth Hardy, Sunrise, Demuth, and Victoria, I believe? Victoria, yes.
I want Sunrise.
So,
Do you need for me to make more copies so they can each have them?
it's, right now, this is the gross information. We're trying to find a way to print the executive summary, which just has the totals in it. But right now, this is pretty much everything that is non-compliant in each of the parks and with the
It's
costs.
non-compliant.
That's non-compliant with the costs associated with it. And just for reference purposes, Victoria Park comes in at about $90,000 worth of deficiencies identified.
So the bigger the report, the more it costs.
Yes. And
Heavy.
Could you give us the total for the other parts?
I am searching for the summary for each of these. Right now, I have the gross data. I was able to get Victoria done, but not the other three. And I will bring that back to you and provide that to you independently. Another item that was requested was an update on the city's drainage. Oh, feel free to circulate these as well.
Give them back to you.
Which one is it?
Does this have things like sidewalk at certain point is too much of an angle and
Yeah, exactly.
This is really, this is.
detail?
Detailed.
One page is, you have to raise a vanity 3 inches, that will cost $1,200.
And here's a curve, $248,
Right, it's very, it's good, it's detailed.
times 19,000.
So the city, pardon me, citywide drainage projects, we currently,
I saw the rules.
an update on the regional project that we were working with Riverside County Flood Control for construction of the detention basin and major drainage infrastructure off of East Palm Canyon. That one is, they're moving forward with the project. That is where the city is expending all of its drainage resources. We anticipate that to be done in the next 2 to 3 years. Once that one is done, we can move forward with other major projects. We are doing minor projects where there's standing water nuisance drainage. One of them is on Calle Santa Cruz near Ramon, and another is on North Farrell, north of Racket Club, where we have some longstanding water that can be easily, that it's cost effective to put in the infrastructure to fix it. The larger projects where it's going to require underground storm drain systems that actually outfall to a creek, those are far more expensive items, and until this drainage project with Riverside County Flood Control is finished, we aren't expending county drainage resources on it. And I know that there was a discussion whether or not Measure J was applicable for storm drainage, and I'll leave that discussion to you. But right now, there just isn't the funding in our drainage fund for these larger programs. Once the major drainage facility that we're working on with Riverside County Flood Control is completed, then we will start to build up our resources again. Other updates. We just opened, let's see, at 3:30, the bids opened for the Fire Station number 4 upgrade. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the low bid was about $700,000 to $800,000 over the allocated funding. So we will be looking at the bids to see if they're compliant, and probably looking at sources of funding to complete that project. But again, this is very preliminary. It just happened an hour ago, so the news is still very green. We are wrapping up the pavement, 1701, the citywide pavement rehab project. We are on to both striping and corrective work. That should be done by the end of April. We have added a couple of parking lots into that project, so not everything is going to get done under this project, but we're making some headway. 1801, we're hoping to be able to bid that project prior to August, and get it awarded prior to August. And that is one where we have distributed the list of streets. So those are available for everyone to review and comment on. And again, those are determined by the pavement condition index that is also published. There should be no surprises. The ones that we are including that don't follow that rule are ones that were skipped because of utilities or other reasons why we couldn't get to those streets in prior years. But we're playing catch up on the ones that are lower than, I think we're at a PCI 53 now. We're catching up on the ones that are lower than that, ones that we might have missed, ones where the PCI was misidentified in our street survey. Speaking of the street survey,
How do you access that list you just talked about? Where is it?
can you hit your microphone, please?
1ps.org under Code Enforcement and Public Works Committee, streets and other fun stuff.
That citywide street survey is going to be redone in 2019 to update it based on not only the streets that we've done, but the deteriorating pavement on the streets that we haven't done. We anticipate that some numbers that were in the 70s or 60s are going to drop down into the 50s and be added to the list of pavement rehab versus slurry seal projects.
I'm sorry, when was that going to be done?
We're going to start in 2019.
Commissioner Craig?
I have a quick question. I'm looking at the Sunrise Park one, and in here, it has restroom, women's restroom, east of the baseball. There is not sufficient clear floor space in the restroom to accommodate an individual in a wheelchair. And it says estimated cost $14,000. Under ADA compliance, don't we have a mandate that this has to be done by certain?
When we have an ADA transition plan and funding associated with that plan, we enact the ADA projects that we strive to achieve compliance based on this plan. So as long as we are making positive progress towards ADA compliance, that's how we are judged.
Are the ADA compliance in all the parks, is that the #1 priority?
I'm not going to state what the priority is citywide. We have parks, we have facilities, we have handicap ramps, ADA ramps. There are numerous areas that are not currently ADA compliant.
Because I thought that ADA compliance nationally was 2020 under President Bush. When it came in 1992, I thought they had to be complied to nationally by 2020.
That's not something I am privy to.
Okay. I'm gonna find out.
And with that, I would love to answer any questions.
Are you going to talk about the roundabout at all, or just so people, I can talk to
Certainly.
it if you want, but it's gone, yes. Yeah.
We had met with, we met this morning with representatives from CVAG, and the roundabout is of interest, but it wasn't of interest in their bicycle pedestrian safety program, which is how this project was funded. That means the city would have to fund it with their Measure J or other funds, Measure J, Measure A. The problem is that the design of the roundabout is still being tweaked. The peanut turned out to be non-functional because it didn't meet truck and fire safety turning radiuses. We worked with the engineer to identify designs that would, but that required some modification of adjacent sidewalk, possible parking lot changes. It wasn't as clean as the peanut was. It didn't fit within the existing right-of-way. So any design that we would do would require right-of-way takes, and that would delay the two-way conversion, which is a priority for the council to get on board. So we're moving ahead with the 3 safety projects, the North Palm Canyon, North Indian Canyon, and South and East Palm Canyon safety projects. The roundabout will, if we move forward with the roundabout, it will be at a later date, but we will have to do some signalization modifications where Palm Canyon, Indian Canyon, and Camino Paracela meet. So that's the project as it stands today. We love the roundabout. We would like the roundabout to work. We're trying to pursue the roundabout, but the timing doesn't fit with these existing projects.
So, I mean, for us, ooh, got carried away there, I guess. So for us, we will not consider it as, in our budget discussions going into May and June, right?
Not the roundabout?
Yeah, the roundabout,
Yes.
that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Question, Commissioner Bixson?
I want to know, when you say we love the roundabout, why?
Roundabouts are safer for pedestrians, safer for vehicles. The accidents that occur in roundabouts are more sideswipe, whereas at a regular intersection, they're T-bone. So the ability to be hurt from a sideswipe accident is much less than from a T-bone accident. And the speeds in a roundabout are much lower, so pedestrians are safer crossing the entrances to the roundabout. I believe there was one study that I saw where there was a lack of pedestrian fatalities in roundabouts, which was wonderful.
So is the two-way conversion halted then until
Nope.
there's a solution?
No, no, no. The two-way conversion is moving full steam ahead. We are at 65% plans. We're reviewing them now. Hope to get them out probably next week back to the engineers so we can finalize them.
So then how are they addressing that area without a roundabout solution?
Modifications to the existing signals.
Okay.
And when would that actually be constructed?
We're looking to get that out within the next 2 to 3 months for construction, or for bid, and then construction immediately following.
By the end of the year?
Oh, most definitely. We're hoping to be out in July.
Finished, completed?
Not completed, out to construction.
Oh, started, oh.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that. I didn't think anybody but the Indians could do that.
I'm sorry, out to bid, not out to construction.
Any other questions, Ron?
Well, I mean, July is bid, when is construction?
However long it takes to process the contracts internally, negotiate with the contractor on all the items.
Didn't you say something about you had to start construction by the end of the year or something?
By December, construction has to be started, but we are going to move far in advance of that
Okay.
for the two-way conversion Indian Canyon. Palm Canyon North and South and East Palm Canyon will probably be closer to the September, October, November timeframe.
Any other questions for Tom?
Since you said it. What do you mean Palm Canyon North? Tell me again what that is.
Palm Canyon North is the CVAG bicycle and pedestrian safety project, which we are including pedestrian bulb outs. We're putting all-way pedestrian phases where the traffic stops and the pedestrians can cross from any corner. Think of it as a scramble. It's pedestrian-free movement on 4 intersections. Tuckwitz, I'd have to go through the list.
It was downtown then.
Yes. Yeah, it is downtown.
Toshiba, any of those?
I don't think Chichiva is one of them. But we based it on pedestrian counts, which ones would have the highest benefit. Other improvements are lighted sidewalks, or pardon me, lighted crosswalks. We're installing the latest video detection equipment so that when pedestrians enter a crosswalk, the video cameras can detect whether there's movement. If the signal starts winding down on time, it'll give them an extra 5 to 7 seconds to cross if it notices movement in the crosswalk. So there's a lot of wonderful pedestrian enhancements for that corridor.
Is there any way you can make the lights come on automatically if they enter and don't push the button? That's the biggest issue.
Can't do everything.
People don't do that.
Actually, I was just in San Francisco, and there are crosswalks not crosswalks, there are lights that go on when someone is crossing at night, automatically. I don't know. But I just remembered something I wanted to tell you. During Modernism Week, there was a ton of pedestrian traffic at the museum and the parking garage at the museum, and there's no crosswalk.
We have been directed to look at that crosswalk, or a crossing somewhere in that area. There are a few things that, there are some utilities in the way, there are some alignment issues, but yes, we've been, and there's also a blind curve coming to that location. But we're looking at how to install a crosswalk safely at that location. That is a direction from the city manager's office.
I do have one more question, I'm sorry. I drove by the Andes today, and have they already started on the parking structure for the new Hyatt on Alejo and Palm Canyon? And if not, they have, there's no space left on that lot that we could possibly put a parking structure unless we're going underneath.
I'm afraid I don't have the info
My
on that.
understanding on that was that the parking is being built by the developer, but he's getting $2 million from us, right, Jeffrey? And he will dedicate 100 spaces to public parking for free, forever. So I think it's incorporated in what is currently the project. I can't figure out where the parking is going to be. I assume in the center, because it didn't go underground.
Well, it must be then, because that's why I drove by it and I was thinking, where in the heck are they gonna put?
I think it's gonna
Where are they
be-
gonna put a parking structure?
In the interior, kind
In
of
the
what was
interior.
the original part that sat there for months before they started adding on to it. I think.
That makes sense, okay. Yeah, well, okay. All right. Buzz update, I think everybody knows by now, the city council voted 4-1 to shut down the Buzz by the end of June. There is a termination fee of $100,000, but it's been determined, if I'm correct, that we won't have to worry about the termination fee, that we'll get the full amount of that budget, right, Mr. Gill? Okay. And so we do have those funds that we can now consider as we're finalizing our unfunded capital projects. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And if there's no questions about the Buzz, we can move right into the report from staff and a continued report on unfunded capital projects. Do we have any?
We don't have any updates. We had this on the agenda to also permit commissioners to continue your discussions.
Right. Okay. All right, so we don't have anything new to consider, is what we're saying here. So the other part of this is, we had narrowed it down. We had narrowed it down in the meeting to 5. That budget totaled $4.8 million. Even with the new Buzz money and trail money, we're looking at $3.2 million. So one of the things that we're gonna have to think about, we can discuss it now as well, but finalize for next meeting, for sure, because we have to vote on it, is how do we wanna handle this? Do we wanna just take a look at this initial 5 and either remove one or look at phases or that type of thing, which we can, like I said, we can do it to now or we can do it April, whichever the commission would like to handle it.
Is there a listing of the 5 that we can review? I don't remember what they are.
There is, I don't have enough copies for everybody, but it's, the park restrooms and renovation was our first, and that was 5th for engineering. Bollards was our second, and that was 2nd for engineering. $400,000 for the park, $900,000 for the bollards. Emergency generators, $1,500,000. That's our 3rd, it's engineering's 4th. Keyless entry, $950,000. That's our 4th, it's engineering's 1st. And then the Caltrans white striping, that's $1,050,000, our 5th, and engineering's 3rd. And it totals $4.8 million.
Would you like us to go get copies?
Yeah, if they're easy.
We
yeah.
could do that fairly quickly.
Okay, that'd be great. We have $3,200,000 to consider for this.
As I recommended before, that's just the current budget estimate, so
Right.
I recommend you go ahead and do a higher amount.
So
whether
we
it's
can't-
4 or 5 or whatever, and it just helps facilitate.
We can't add that 855,000.
It's already in,
It's in, oh, I'm sorry, that 855,000 is in the 3.2 million
yes.
that I feared.
But-
So what you're saying is we could make the decision to go ahead and spend the 4.8 and keep all these projects whole? And then just have to,
Well,
Pay
I'm
for it
just
later.
saying, if you come up with a list that's prioritized beyond what is currently projected, then that permits if additional monies come in, or if council says, or staff says, you know, this one isn't ready,
right,
so maybe we put it off. It gives you the ability to have your voice heard for more projects. So if a project gets rejected for some reason, then at least they'll know what was the next one in the queue per your request.
Commissioner Hammond?
So, question for Tom. In the street repair work that is going to happen through 1920, that's going out for bid, is that going out for bid with striping? So, or does the city actually require the wide striping equipment this year?
Yes.
Really?
The city, all new paving projects that occur on streets with stripes, not necessarily the residential ones, will require the new Caltrans standard striping. So whenever we grind a street,
So-
whenever we slurry it,
So when you restripe, the city will restripe Farrell. The city will restripe
Yes.
Laverne, and I'm just
correct,
presuming all of that would
that's correct.
happen. Okay. Okay.
Anything over and above that for regular maintenance, that's when the vehicle, the new striping vehicle and the new standards will be input on those roads that are not, the roads that we've repaved 2-3 years ago. They're still in great condition, but have the old markings on them. Those are the ones that we would be changing to the new standard.
So over the next couple of years, when the city goes out for bid on streets, and which will include striping, will that be half, will that be $500,000 of striping? Or if the striping equipment was delayed a year, would what is already, what's already underway still be striped?
The only thing that would be striped are those roads that we're working on today.
Okay.
1701, the one that we're just completing, any striping that's happening with 1701 will be the new standard. 1801, when it goes out to bid, all the new striping will be the new standard. For the ones that happened in 1601, 1501, those are the old standard.
Right.
That's what we want to redo.
Okay.
Just thinking out loud, one idea would be to do like we did prior, go back and send Ariana our top 5, and then break it down in 2 ways. One, within the current budget, $3.2 million. If that's all we're gonna get, this is what we want, this is what we recommend. And then the second would be, what do we really want? And take it, if it's, doesn't matter, put in the holiday lights, whatever we think we really wanna recommend, and just, don't worry about the budget without going crazy. Does that make sense to everybody? So then we could present it that way when we present to the city council. The budget's $3.2 million for this calendar year. This is what we recommend. These are the things we would like to do as well, but don't fall under the current budget. But if money comes available, we'd like them to be in this priority. Does that make sense?
Isn't it what we did with this voting?
Right, that's what I thought we did
Well,
with
that-
these top 5.
That is true, but I want everybody to make sure, are these really the 5?
I thought it was, that's what,
No, this is the initial draft.
Okay.
And if everybody wants to stay with these 5, we don't need to go through this. But there was a lot of discussion about holiday lights and different things.
Only one person voted for it.
Oh, I know, but then, right, but I mean, what I mean is there was a big discussion after that, that, you know, that a lot of people thought, well, you're right, there's a lot of burned out, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not saying that holiday lights should be included. I'm just saying is this is our chance, think about it, rethink about it, look at the things that we have. We now have all the resources, we know all the unfunded capital projects that are available. And then send that list to Ariana. If it ends up being the identical list, there's nothing wrong with that. I just want us to do one more thought process on it.
I'll just offer one other thought. If the commission is comfortable with this list, we could include this in the initial budget information that's submitted to the council on April 4th. We hadn't planned to do that, but we certainly can. I'll just remind you that we do have the Measure J Joint Commission meeting and council meeting in May.
Right.
And we also have the town hall meeting on the 26th, which, by the way, just yesterday, the subcommittee requested that Michael Johnson, as the chair, come as a representative of Measure J to that meeting, and he's agreed to do that. Of course, any commissioner that wants to come is welcome to. But so we already have a pair of opportunities for it to be discussed with the public. But if you did get this list and maybe this exact page out there earlier, it would afford the public more opportunity to consider your thoughts in this matter.
Yes, go ahead.
I think we voted, and I don't feel like I need to categorize, but I am confused on our number 5, our 5, the Caltrans wide striping, because we didn't include phase 1 in that, and I'm not sure, does that need to be put back into it? It's a $50,000 amount, and I don't know what why we separated them out. Does somebody know that?
I don't think that's,
Well, it's 10 Caltrans wide striping, and then 10A is down here, Caltrans wide phase 1. What's the difference here?
the total is the $1,050,000. That's all the phases.
Okay,
That's all the phases.
all right, so that's already included at the top?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we could just,
but we included them all, is that correct?
okay, so,
Okay, so this thing on the bottom is already included
all right.
in that list. Okay. I just didn't know if we screwed that up.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
Michael.
Yes. Commissioner Williams.
I was just going back to what you had said, Jeffrey, and this is sort of the laundry list here, which includes $5.5 million for the Plaza Theater, for instance. And I don't think it would be good form for this commission to present this to the council. I think we were asked, or.
We have the other descriptions that we could do.
No, that's not what I mean.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
just meant the top 5.
No, I thought we were asked to make some recommendations, and just to give the whole list is not making recommendations. Now, we might want to vote on enough to have 7 or 8 in case there's extra money. But I think we voted on 5, so I think that's the 5 we should present.
I wasn't suggesting the whole list.
Are you only talking the top?
Yes.
Oh, well,
Yeah, he meant the top 5.
What I was saying is, in our planning for the document that we were going to present to council on April 4th, we weren't planning on presenting any kind of detail on the commission's recommendations, knowing that you had a couple more meetings and opportunities to refine your list.
Right.
I just kind of on the spur of the moment here was saying, if you've kind of settled on this list, then we could present that list with a little bit more detailed description of those 5 items.
Do you have the dates? You mentioned the town hall meeting.
Yes.
And you mentioned the joint meeting, so we can get those on the
So-
calendar.
April 26th.
So cutting to, under my staff comments, I was going to also repeat these. But April 4th is the first meeting where all funds, except the airport, are going to be presented to the city council. In that, we would just have a very summarized piece of information on Measure J that did not delineate any projects that had not been already approved. So this list wasn't going to go in. You just see the extension. Basically, if you go back to the finance report for next year's column, if that makes sense. Then at the joint meeting, which I wanted to also point out, there was an error on the roadmap. It had said that meeting was May 17th.
Yeah, it's May 16th.
It's May 16th,
16th?
which is a
May 16th.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that's the joint council meeting and Measure J commission meeting. It's a regular council meeting that will begin with a Measure J joint meeting opportunity.
And Ariana corrected it on the calendar for
Yes,
this month.
but I wanted to point that
No,
out
no,
to
it's
you in
good.
case
Good.
you already had it in your calendars for the 17th. And then the town hall meetings, there's one on April 24th, which is for general budget matters, and one for April 26th, which is focused on capital. And that's being run by the joint budget finance committee of councilpersons Coors and Middleton. Of course, other council people may show up, but if one more shows up and participates, it's a formal council meeting. So that's the plan, and that's the one that the chair has been asked to attend. And then the public hearing on the overall budget is being presented on June 6th. Council may adopt the budget on that evening, which, based upon past years, we expect to happen, or they can delay it 2 more weeks to June 20th.
The 5 projects add up to $4,800,000, so that's already over our budget.
That's correct.
So I think we seemed like we were in agreement with these were our top 5 projects, and so that already goes over our budget and seems like that makes sense. And I don't know that we should be adding more because that's almost 5 million, but that's my thought.
And
To
can we
keep the
confirm
fi-
the order is also acceptable to the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just consider those 5 and the order that they're in, and I don't have any need to go back and vote on them.
Commissioner Craig, he's been trying.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood this. In the list from before, the park and restrooms renovations, repairs, Demuth, Victoria, Sunrise, and Ruth Hardy. And we have the park restrooms and that at 400,000. Forgetting what I was talking about earlier about ADA compliance, is that saying that if this is approved, that would all be taken care of?
I can't state at this point that that would completely cover all the ADA fixes that would need to be done at those 4 facilities. I can come back with that figure.
So this 400,000 may be smaller than it would be to complete all?
I, again, can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Sid, actually, we addressed that in the last meeting. They were talking about anything that gets touched during that construction under the park restroom renovation would be brought up to ADA.
Right.
So if they're doing anything to the interior, they have to bring it up.
They have to.
Right.
Now, they might not fix a curb that's outside of it,
Right.
an access point, but anything that gets touched, that will be brought up to EDA.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to bring back, because I thought we discussed, I thought we weren't too hung up on being somewhat over budget in this pick of our top 5, because these projects could be multi-year and go into multiple budgets. So if I'm not correct here, I thought we were sort of okay with that, because Bullards might not take as long, or might take longer. Keyless entry might be a 2-year project. I mean, all of these things are gonna run into multiple years, so I didn't think we were supposed to be too hung up about being over.
No, we were not, and also, the other part of that was, we didn't know whether we were gonna have a 1-year budget or a 2-year budget. If we had a 2-year budget, we'd have significantly more money. So that, I think that we can vote on this tonight. My suggestion was, and I don't object to going with these 5, and so I just wanna make sure that mine is understood, was to break it down, 3.2 million, so we are talking about our budget when we talk to the city council. We're not saying, hey, we just wanna spend $5 million. And then to do that, maybe you take out 2 of these and put in some smaller ones. That's what I mean by, you could look at other things that get us to that $3.2 million number. Then list the other ones after that and say, however, these are our priorities outside of the budget, and then list these other things.
The other possibility to that, I would suggest, is, I haven't done the math on these, but once we get close to the $3.2 million number, we could indicate a phase 1 or year 1 funding for that final project.
Yeah.
Indicating that it would be expected that that would be budgeted in year 2.
And could
For-
we do that
for the
on
rest
any of those of the 5 line items? I mean, maybe the keyless entry system takes 2 years to do. You know, that's a $950,000 that could be split.
The keyless entry was one of my questions too, given that there are 2 other entries for keyless entry below the line. My question is, would the city bid all 3 of those projects at the same time, or would they break them up and send out 3 different bids, one for each project? And what's the probability of, if the city were to send all 3 projects out to bid, that you'd get a better number than splitting them up?
If I may,
Confused.
I think.
These are
There are
added.
2.
Right.
No, I know.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
No, it's
no,
not,
no, I'm asking I'm looking at the keyless entry in the top 5.
Right.
But I'm asking about what the bid process might look like for keyless entry generally. Because if the city is more likely to get a better price for doing all 3 of these, bidding all 3 of these projects at the same time, if that's what they would normally do, then I would say, let's take the keyless entry out so that we have $950,000 less in projects, and so that the city could put all 3 of those projects, keyless entry projects, out.
There were 2.
No,
There are only 2 projects.
and
There's-
this is,
And they're
I'm
already-
sorry,
So
this is,
this-
this
and a
is
2B.
AB. If you
You
look
combine
at,
them up on top.
it's 2AB keyless entries.
so then why do we have that down
But we have
below as
separate
well?
votes.
Because we had
Because
separate
these
votes.
are votes for just doing one phase.
Okay.
And this is vote
I
doing just one phase.
apologize for taking the
No,
time.
that's okay, I understand the question, it was a good question, it's just, that's confusing that's down there as well, I agree.
Yeah.
And.
I
Commissioner
just
Dixon?
wanted to say that if we are going to cut off at 3.2 million, I think the wide striping should be higher on the list, because I think that's really important, more than keyless entry. And I would hate to see that get postponed because that's for autonomous cars, which are coming.
A very good point to take. Right, and so, I mean, yes, that's certainly an important consideration. So, are we in agreement then that we will go home, figure out our 3.2 million first, draw the little line underneath it, and then add the others that you would like in order of priority, and then send it to Ariana, and she will put them together, bring them to the next meeting. We'll discuss them. We might make some changes, who knows, but we will discuss it, and then we will vote, literally vote on these final projects at that time.
Are you suggesting the 3.2 million first slash at it come out of the top 5?
No, I am not suggesting that. I'm saying if you can go anywhere you want in any of the unfunded projects to come up with your 3.2 million. Because what could happen is, let's say we figure out that we can do this one phase 1 year, the phase next year. So now we're spending $2,800,000. Well, then you can throw your holiday lights in there to get us up to the $3 million.
Aren't we doing what we did already? That's what David just said. We voted already, so why are we voting again?
Okay, we have a budget. When Mr. Kill asked us to vote before, when we discussed this, he said, forget about budget. Just don't worry about the budget at all. Just go ahead and vote. We knew then that this was $4.8 million. That was unlikely that we were going to get $4.8 million, but we didn't know that. We now know we have $3.2 million that we really can spend. And so we need, when we recommend to the city council, from my personal view, to say, okay, here is our budget. These are our top priorities within our budget. We have these other things that we'd also like to do, and so this is the priority of which we have them in. And that's why I think we as a group need to agree on that $3.2 million part of the budget.
I'll give you another possibility, and I think maybe this is what Jeffrey was thinking. If we were just to provide the top 5 that we already bid, knowing that it's $1.6 million over budget, the council may have no interest in any particular one of these. They may say, well, you know, keyless entry is something that is not high on our list, but they would still have 5 projects to pick from to get to their 3.2 million. Maybe it should be 7, I don't know. But anyway, I think to give them more choices than they can actually afford might be a good idea. And I believe that's what you said.
That is what I was getting at. And the other thing I was suggesting that by the time we get to June 6th at the public hearing, that's over 2 months worth of extra information on revenues and existing projects. And there may be a different number. So I was encouraging not to focus too rigidly on a specific number right now and allow flexibility. And I would hope when we got to the public hearing, we would be able to fill up the glass with as much money as we have available at the time, and draw the line in the middle of the last project and say we're going to fund X amount of that final project in this year and have the rest on the list for next year.
Okay, why don't we vote? Why don't we vote on this? And this particular one, instead of saying aye and all that, we'll go to each individual commissioner and just vote. And we can say whether we want to just go with this 5 and then talk about the budget around that 5. Commissioner Hammond, you want to start, and then we'll go right to left?
I would submit the list that we have already voted on to the city and let them, at their own discretion, decide how to spend that money.
Okay, Mr. Good.
I would concur that we should just stick with the list, and the priorities can juggle around as the city council decides.
Commissioner Gazan?
Yes, give the top 5 list for their April 4th meeting.
Commissioner Craig?
I support the top 5 for the April meeting.
Commissioner Vixen.
I agree with the top 5 for the April 4th meeting.
Commissioner Williams.
I agree too, because I think if we go back and vote again, we'll probably get another list of one vote for another 10 projects, and we'll be back where we started. So I think, right.
Either way, Ray.
I concur.
Okay. Then I will go along with that. So we will go ahead and submit for the April 4th meeting, these top 5, with the drawing the line at the 3.2.
And the way we'll format it, from your last packet, you had these descriptions. We'll use these same exact descriptions.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. All right, what do we got next? We have, public comment. Do we have any public comment at this stage?
We do not.
Just expressions. Okay. Any staff member comments at this point? Yes,
I just very
Mr. Keel.
briefly want to remind the commissioners, if you have not done so already, to get your Form 700s turned in to the city clerk's office.
What's the date? Is final date? April 2nd.
So,
Yes.
Yes.
For 2017, really. December
so
2017 to January. Not yet.
yes, that's correct.
I thought I'd already done it. I was wrong.
So did we get notification
Yeah,
from
we
city
got-
clerk's
you got it from-
office?
You did.
We got a
You
letter,
should have. If
an
you
email from
didn't,
Terry.
if you have not received an email, let either Ariana or I know, and we'll forward it to you.
Yeah. Because it came from Terry. Terry
Milton
Milton.
in the city clerk's office.
Yeah.
That's all that I have. It is a little bit later than usual.
Do we have to get the forms in the office?
No, they're included.
They're included, and
Okay.
if you don't have a printer available, you can stop by the city clerk's office to get them, or we can mail them to you. Either
Okay.
way.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions about how to fill it out,
No, I have
they're
it.
helpful there
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed part of that. Were you asking about where the forms were? Mm-hmm. And, yeah, they're PDF in your email that was
Okay.
sent. So if you didn't receive it and we forward it to you, you'll find it down below. It's like 24 pages. You probably only need 2, so, you know.
Hasn't changed.
Right, if your circumstances haven't changed, then that won't change. So you only need to print the 2 pages that you did. Okay. Oh, all right. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
This adjournment we shall do. Thank you very much, everyone.